Now continue.
So let us call this meeting to order then of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council's March general meeting. And if you'd like to do the roll call, go ahead to make sure that we're all here. Mr. Secretary.
John Barbera,
Here.
Vic Christensen here, John DeMiglio,
Here.
Dan Dixon is out. Craig Goldfarb,
Here.
Cynthia Gagne. Unmute. Okay, I'll come back. Gwen Henry. Don't see.
Can you hear me now? This is Cynthia. I'm
Okay,
here.
gotcha. Okay, hang on, I'm moving Thomas Norman over. Melanie Lebrecht,
Here.
Kelly Miller,
Present.
Here. Sorry.
now Thomas Norman.
Oh, sorry, when I went into the nowhere land, I thought I was called on. Present.
And I missed Alec Norman,
Here.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Here.
David Semperio,
I'm here.
Angela Sumner,
Here.
Chris Valle,
Here.
Ray Regalado. Okay. Let's see who's over in attendees. Nope, nobody there.
I'm here.
Okay, Gwen Henry is here. Okay, we have 15 out of 17, so we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. So before we continue on with the agenda, just remind us that if anyone wants to speak during public comment on a non-agenda item or during the agenda items, you can raise your hand and I and other executive officers will check all of the attendees and then we'll recognize you. And then you have 2 minutes to speak approximately or less if you so choose. And that about does it. So let's be courteous. Don't try to speak over anyone else and let them finish their comment before we recognize the next person.
And Ray is here, so we have 16.
Okay, very good. So the next item before us then is the general public comment on non-agenda items. So does anyone have any general public comment? And we'll look at the participants. I saw Alan Franz. Go ahead, Mr. Franz.
Thank you, Christian. I'd just like to extend a quick invitation to the Wild and Scenic Film Festival, which is coming up in just over a month on April the 24th at the Scenic Warner Grand Theater in beautiful downtown San Pedro. I know a number of you have been to earlier versions of it. We've been showing it every year, either live at the Warner Grand or online during the pandemic. But it's a series of short films, anywhere from 2 to 30 minutes long and one after another, about nature and the way that humans interact with nature. And it's our primary fundraiser for White Point Nature Preserve and Education Center down at the south end of Western Avenue. So if we can entice you to come on down to White Point and to come to the Warner Grand on April 24th, that'd be great. And you can get tickets at the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy's website, which is pvplc.org. That's it. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. Anyone else for a public comment on non-agenda items? Mr. Secretary, was your hand up for that?
Yes, it was. I'm not sure why it went down.
Sorry, that was me.
Shame on you. First, happy Pi Day. And this is mainly toward the committee chairs, but also for the public who's interested. A reminder to the committee chairs to post your agendas at the Harbor Division Police Station. If you're not familiar with where it is, the address is at the end of our agenda on Gibson Boulevard. And also for primarily the committee chairs, but in general, if anybody on the board wants to know, if you need to schedule a Zoom webinar meeting, you need to email me in advance with enough time to set it up, of the date, the time, and the email addresses of the people you want to be panelists. So just make sure that you do all that with enough time before the meeting actually has to be posted. Sorry, the agenda has to be posted, which is typically 72 hours. That is all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. And then I think the digits I know are just 3.141592. I don't remember the rest, and there are infinitely many. We'll go on then. Anyone else for public comment? Go ahead, Mr. Secretary.
Just one quick thing, not so much public comment, but something we missed before that. If there are any students who are online, please raise your hand so we can record your name and notify the school. I think most of the people as attendees are not students, but there are a couple that might be. And I don't see any hands, so.
Mr. Secretary, switch David Samperio back.
Yeah, I think I just got him. Yeah, thank you.
Got him.
Let us move on then to the next item before us on the agenda, which will be the Homelessness Liaison Report. And I hope we have Laurie Jacobs to deliver that. I'm very eager to hear it. Go ahead, Laurie.
Thank you very much. Is somebody going to show the report on the screen? Okay, thank you so much. So I'm not going to read all of these items verbatim. That's totally, you can read that on your own. But I want to hit some of the highlights, and thank you for putting this at the beginning of the agenda, Mr. President. So reminder for everybody, if you want to attend the CD15 working group that meets once a month, there's on the report where you could email and then get at least on the distribution to get notified of the meetings and get the meeting report updates. And if you witness somebody experiencing problems out there, homeless, mental illness, whatever you witness, please go into the lahop.org portal. It's very simple to report what you see. Give as much information as you can. If you see the person at the same place each day, approximately what they look like, and you have the option of reporting that anonymously. The homeless count went very well. We had 100% of all the tracks in San Pedro and in total SPA 8, which is service provider area, covered, and neighborhood councils were part of that participation. Can you scroll down, please, on the report, whoever's doing that? Thank you. Update on the interim shelters, which includes congregate interim housing, pallet shelters, Bridge Home, all of them. During the month of January, quite a few of them had to shut down because of COVID outbreaks. As of last week, there were no quarantines. All of the shelters were open. And during the time that they had to shut down, quite a few people left the pallet shelters over there in Harbor City, where there's 75 units, and they did not want to stay quarantined 24/7. The outreach workers have now reached most of them. Quite a few went over to the Lomita McCoy encampment. Some went over to San Pedro, and they're working diligently to get those people. Most of them are accepting the assistance. They didn't really want to leave, but because of the quarantine, that's what they did. And the numbers there, if you're interested on what the vacancies are and the fulfillment. And a good percentage of the people in the shelters have been vaccinated, and they're continuing to work on that. So there's a lot of new housing coming to the harbor area. Okay, some of it is permanent supportive housing, some of it is all supportive housing, some of it's a portion of it. Beacon Landing is one such facility that is all 100% supportive housing, subsidized, and it's located at 311 through 345 Beacon Street, which is very close to where the Bridge Home is over there. And I got to admit, I'm not sure about if construction has started, but these units will be about 310 square feet. Case management will be included to help everybody with finding jobs, getting whatever wraparound services they need. So this is great news. You could scroll down a little bit. They did a presentation on a proposed one. It's actually in Harbor City, but it's just on the border of us. The location's a little questionable, so they're going to put out some community outreach to see what people have to say. It's over on Western, just south of PCH. Concerns, not enough parking in the area, across the street from a giant dispensary, not walking distance to a market. But at the same time, it's great to see 100% subsidized housing for people and to help them get off the streets and get the services they need. And then if you want to read more, I've put the links there. Some new supportive housing, construction, the South Los Angeles Recuperative Care in partnership with the People's Concerns have worked on one at 685 West 4th Street in San Pedro, which will be 28 units for veterans. And then there's another one at 569 West 5th Street with 48 units. Both will have management and supportive services on site for case management. Hope on 6th. If any of you are familiar with Pastor Lisa, she's been working for the last couple of years at the United Methodist Church at 6th Street. And it looks like that's finally moving forward. So Pastor Lisa in the church inherited the property next door to the church, which is an empty lot. And so they saw an opportunity to put in some affordable housing there where they'll be right next to the church to get supportive services, meals, everything they might need to get them on the road to a better way of living. And so we have a meeting next week with them to see what the status of that project is. And in my job, we're also reaching out to other faith-based organizations to see where there's other opportunities, because as you know, getting supportive housing, one of the biggest problems is the difficulty in finding open property. So if we can find some private property with the churches, that could be a real good match. The Blue Ribbon Commission on Homelessness, commonly called BIRCH, is basically a commission, an ad hoc commission set up by the Board of Supervisors to do governance over LAHSA. LAHSA was not originally set up to do the amount of work that they're doing. It just sort of evolved. And so they're looking at how they could better manage the program, get the city and the county working together, identify the challenges that are inherent to their current systems, and they're very close to providing recommendations to improve the efficiency. I'll keep you covered on that one or updated. Care Court, don't have a lot to announce on that because it was just announced last week by Governor Newsom. Right now, it's just a framework to investigate. And the Care Court program really is a plan to get Californians in crisis off the streets and into housing, treatment, and care. It's acting early to get people the support they need, specifically on behavioral and mental illness, which we've all seen an increase in. And so as I get more information, I listened to a webinar today. It's really still at early stages of framework, but I'll find out when there'll be an opportunity if stakeholders want to weigh in and learn more about that. It has to go through the legislation process. So all in all, people are getting housed. Interim housing, some supportive housing, but we're still moving backwards because more people are falling into homelessness. than people are getting housed. The county was issued by the federal government 6,806 emergency housing vouchers. LAS is working with all the housing authorities in the South Bay. There's actually LA City, LA County, and 4 in the South Bay. And the process is slow, but when they're matching them up, the problem is there's not enough landlords who will accept the vouchers. So we need to educate the landlords on the benefits of the vouchers. They would have taken voucher tenants during the COVID hold on the evictions moratorium. They would have been getting rent, where a lot of them weren't getting paid rent during the eviction moratorium. The eviction moratorium was supposed to end in March. My understanding is that looks like it may be extended to the end of the year. The county supervisors tomorrow are looking at an agenda item to really help the property owners with their mortgage payments. So obviously there's a lot to cover when you're talking about homelessness, mental illness, the root causes, but this is an overview, and I've given you plenty of links if you want to research. And that is my report. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
Okay, for the sake of time, let's take maybe 2 questions. Go ahead, Mr. Ray Regalado.
Thank you. It's not a question. It's more of a, did you know that on last Thursday, Lori was honored for her community service in the community in a lot of the work that she's doing with the Girl Scouts, with our unsheltered communities and things like that. And she was honored by the Chamber of Commerce, San Pedro Chamber of Commerce. She did it's very well deserved. She's really becoming such an expert in our community when it comes to the issue of our unhoused and our unsheltered community members. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that she was stellar in the fact that she was honored last Thursday.
Yay, Lori. Thank you, guys. It takes a village. There's lots of people doing work.
Melanie Lebrecq.
Yeah, also want to applaud Lori. That was what I was going to say too, but I'm proud of her for getting that award. The other thing I wanted to piggyback on is her report. One thing that Lori and I had a conversation about is a lot of people are being directed for like homeless encampments and stuff to contact 311. And 311 is okay, but all they do is remove the stuff. They do nothing to help the homeless, you know, as far as services or anything else. They just go and grab the stuff that's on the sidewalk that's not supposed to be there, that's blocking, and no services are offered. So it's important. Yeah, you could do 311, but the LA Hop is very important. I've successfully been able to do LA Hop and get someone out here and get them services as well as get it cleaned up like 3 times now in our neighborhood. So it does work.
Thank you, Melanie. And that's a really big point. 311 does not include any type of outreach. So all you're doing is it's a Band-Aid. You're picking up and throwing away somebody's stuff, but you're not getting them the help that they need. And we all need to look at helping people, humanitarian, not just moving them to another community. And so, yes, in the LA Hop portal is very simple, quick, and they can give you a report back. So thanks, Melanie. That's an excellent point. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, that was an excellent report. Hopefully we'll hear more about people being housed at a faster rate in the future. And we'll move on to our next agenda item. I believe we have a city attorney, Steve. You'll have to correct me. Is it Hookin or Hoochin? I think you said Hookin in the past, but go ahead and give us your presentation on the Brown Act.
Yes, hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's actually pronounced Houchin, but very few people get it right. So no worries at all. Thank you for having me. I always like getting to see, board members at your actual meetings rather than just talking over email. I was asked to come today to speak to you about the Brown Act, but focusing on 2 specific Brown Act issues. So I'm not going to be speaking today on the entirety of the Brown Act, obviously, or any, amount of depth, other than to focus on questions over what constitutes a majority for purposes of the Brown Act, and also how that might impact your committee membership, and then also some questions about regular versus special meetings. That's what I'll be focused on, but in the limited time we have for a few questions, I can try to address them. Another thing that I want to make clear from the outset is, as a legal advisor to the city, to your board specifically, in this public setting, I can't provide legal advice. So I have to speak pretty generally, and although I know that there are probably some specific questions that you'd like to ask relating to issues that are currently happening with your board, I can't give legal advice in this public meeting. But our general process, if you're not already aware, is for you to refer any of your legal questions to your chair, who serves as your legal liaison, and I'll work with your chair to address any legal questions, and that includes Brown Act questions. So just generally, very generally, I'm assuming you're all aware of the Brown Act. I hope you are. It's a state law. It's contained within the state's government code, and it essentially establishes rules, a series of rules, to ensure that the actions and the deliberations of what are called legislative bodies, and which include neighborhood council boards, are taken openly and with public input. And so there are, the Brown Act is lengthy and can be complicated, but the core rules relate to notice and public participation. So notice being your agendas, the posting of the agendas, 72 hours in advance for your regular meetings, and 24 hours for special meetings, and the general requirement that your agendas must list and at least generally describe each item that you will be discussing or acting upon. And then the other big group of rules relates to public participation, which is primarily your general public comment, which you already did here, and then your item-specific public comment. But as I mentioned at the beginning, I was asked to focus mostly on kind of this Brown Act issue of majority. And before we get there, I just wanted to make clear that the Brown Act is primarily focused on meetings and defines when a meeting occurs, right? So the Brown Act rules and the concerns that the Brown Act wants to address is to impose those core requirements whenever there is a quote unquote meeting of your board. And the Brown Act describes a meeting as basically when members gather at the same time, same place, and they gather to hear, to discuss, to deliberate, or to take action on any matter under the subject matter jurisdiction of your neighborhood council. And the subject matter jurisdiction of your board, of your neighborhood council, is very, very broad, because kind of the nature of neighborhood councils is to address issues of neighborhood concern, and those are very wide. So that's the traditional meeting. But then you should also be aware, and I'm sure you all are, of what's known as the serial meeting or serial communications. Those occur when a series of communications are used, usually electronically these days, to discuss, deliberate, take action on an item that's within the neighborhood council subject matter jurisdiction. But for this conversation, we're really talking about that. The first category is when you are all together, and the focus on the word majority, because the Brown Act says that a meeting occurs when a majority of your members gathers, and that's the word used in the law. So obviously, or the most obvious majority would be a simple majority. So more than half, right, would be a majority of your total board. But with neighborhood councils, and it's very common, many neighborhood councils through their bylaws allow for official action to be taken with less than a simple majority of members. And I believe this happened years and years ago. My understanding is this change kind of started occurring when certain boards were experiencing difficulty getting enough people to show up. I'm actually impressed to see how many of your board members are here tonight. It's actually great. You should be proud to have that much participation. But my understanding historically was that boards struggled to get a large number to show up. And so what resulted was bylaws changing to allow for less board members needed to take official action for the entire board, so as to sufficiently, complete their operations. So along with that, so when we're talking about the Brown Act and kind of the purpose of the Brown Act, it's to prevent the number of board members needed to take official action from meeting in secret. We want whatever number is required or allows for the board to take an official action to have to meet in the public view, and then for them to accept public input before making decisions, taking actions. And so if a neighborhood council's bylaws provide for some number less than a simple majority, then the number you're focused on is the number that the least number of members you need to take official action on behalf of your board. And that's what you should be focused on in terms of when a meeting, quote unquote, is occurring. So simple majority, just by way of example, and I mean, this is just simple math, but if you have 15 board members on a board and your bylaws say that official action is taken by a simple majority, then it would be 8. That 8 members would gathering and discussing or hearing a matter or taking action would constitute a meeting. But the more common situation is less than and will be something to the effect of majority of members present. And this is where you will hear the phrase majority of quorum. That phrase is used, and it really is meant to refer to this situation, which is if you have less than a majority, simple majority that can take action on behalf of the board. So in the instance of 15 board members, you also need to know what the quorum is. So taking the example of a 15-member board, let's say that board has a quorum of 11, which means that once 11 board members are together under those bylaws, you now can you can conduct business, right? 11 members now allows you to conduct your business, but that's not majority. In the majority of members present scenario, once you have a quorum, actually a majority of that quorum can take official action on behalf of the entire board, right? So in the 11 board member quorum scenario, as few as 6 aye votes can pass an action, can pass a motion. So in that scenario, we're focused on 6 members, which is less than a simple majority. And again, it's because with as few as 6 for that board, official action can be taken. And the rationale is if we allowed the 6 people to get together in secret, they could just decide how they're going to vote, and it would be enough to carry and take official action. And so that's why we call it majority of quorum, or you'll hear it referred to as that. And then, so that's kind of my overview of the majority of quorum, how majority is kind of works under the Brown Act, and kind of that special situation that I really haven't seen outside of neighborhood council boards. Typically our city commissions, board, city council, the number needed to take action is more than a simple majority, or it's a simple majority. The other topic that I was asked to discuss is regular versus special meetings. And as you probably know, regular meetings require 72 hours posting of your agenda, at least. But stepping back more than that, the purpose of regular meetings is really that's where your business really occurs primarily. Regular meetings are supposed to have a set time, and in the old days, it's crazy to think about those times, but it used to be a physical location. Now we're still in our digital virtual meeting world, but it's generally the same day. With most boards, it'll be like the fourth, whatever day of the month. And that's when the boards or your board will generally conduct its business. The Brown Act also creates or allows for what are called special meetings. And as you also probably know, those require less notice, actually 24 hours as opposed to 72. And really what special meetings are used for are to discuss kind of very distinct specific items. Typically they're used when items, there's a time sensitivity, there's a need to address something before the next regular meeting. And the board needs the ability to, or basically can't wait until the next regular meeting. That's really where we should be seeing them. Importantly, special meetings should not be used to replace regular meetings. There's actually nothing in the Brown Act that says that expressly says, oh, you can't have a special meeting in place of a regular meeting or anything like that. But really, the concern is that if a legislative body starts to use the special meeting to kind of circumvent the notice requirements under regular meetings, it can start to conflict with the spirit of the Brown Act, or it starts to become problematic in that you're not following the Brown Act's mandates by holding your regular meetings, and you're simply trying to use a shorter amount of notice, which is not what the Brown Act envisions. So we get asked a lot, where in the Brown Act does it say when we're allowed to have a special meeting? And the answer is it doesn't really. So we have to kind of more lean into the purpose of a regular versus a special meeting. I mean, really what they're intended to be used for. Another very important difference between regular and special meetings, you aren't required to have general public comment actually at a special meeting. You are at a regular meeting. Although nothing prohibits a board, obviously, from having general public comment at all of its meetings, including special meetings, but it's another important difference. And then I realized one thing I didn't touch upon on the prior topic before I kind of stop and see if we have questions is related to the majority number and how it impacts committee membership. Depending on how a neighborhood council has structured its official action number, if the number becomes too small, it can impact your number of board members who can participate on committees. So in this scenario where we had like the 6 number, that neighborhood council could have no more than 5 members on a committee, because if you had a majority or more on a committee, it essentially turns into a full board meeting because you have a majority of the board. So the number impacts the number for your general board impacts the number of members, the maximum you can have on your committees. And another important point that I really wanted to highlight is you're in control of that number. Even if your bylaws have read a certain way for a long time, nothing prevents you from rethinking what you constitute as your official action number. And you may think it's too small right now and you want to increase it so that you can have larger committees, or just you want to require more board members to have to actually give an affirmative yes to you. You don't want a small number to be able to bind or speak for the entire board. So this is a number that you are in control of and have the power to change. Okay, so obviously there's a ton more about the Brown Act than just that. But those were the two topics that I was asked to really focus on. And Christian, if you want, I didn't know how you wanted to do this. If you wanted to allow for some questions, I'm happy to do so, or we can, take the questions after the meeting in writing to you, and however you want to do it.
Yeah, I think that it would be good. Anyone is welcome to give me a question in writing and I'll forward it. But also, I think we have time for a few now. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
Well, then I'll recognize them when their hands are raised. Go ahead, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah, just so you know, we've got officially about 3.5 minutes left. So if you want to extend it afterward, I just wanted to let you know. I do have a question though, as far as the committees go. If you have other board members who are not committee members, but they attend a committee meeting for which they are not a member, what are the intended actions or inactions, as the case may be, that they should be abiding by or doing while they're in attendance at that committee meeting?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the Brown Act actually contemplates this question. There's a provision that addresses it. And essentially the way it works is board members, if you have a committee, non-committee board members may attend if the number of board members in the room, counting both the committee board members and then the board members participating in the audience or sitting in the audience, is a majority or more, then the non-committee board members can attend, but only as observers or silent observers, meaning no participation at all. So those board members are allowed to sit and listen and be present, not sitting where the committee members sit, but being there as members of the public, essentially. And they can be there as long as they are not participating in any way. So sitting as silent observers. And that's one of a few, there's a few other exceptions in the Brown Act that are very specific, but there is one exception that does address that situation.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll wait a couple more seconds to see if we have any more hands. Well, thank you, Steve, for coming tonight, and you answered a lot of questions I think I had. And again, if anyone has any comments or questions that they want to give me in writing, I'll deliver them to you, and maybe we'll speak again in the future.
Great. Well, thanks again, everybody. And thanks for your service as board members. We appreciate it a lot.
Have a wonderful evening. And with that, we'll move on now to item number 5, which is our public officials report. So if there are any elected officials or their representatives and they want to make a quick report to us, raise your hand and then we will recognize you. I think earlier I saw Octaviano Rios. Let's see if he's still here. And then if he is, he can go ahead and go. Yeah, he is. Go ahead, Octaviano.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Octaviano Rios, the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. Good evening, everybody. First off, congratulations, Lori Jacobs, for your recognition last week. Well deserved. You work very hard in the community for what you do, so congratulations. And thank you to Stephen Houchin for presenting that presentation on the Brown Act and meetings. Thank you, Steve. We can talk soon. He's a great partner. He's been around for a few years, working with our department and the city clerk's office and neighborhood council. So he's a wealth of knowledge and a great partner to have alongside in this journey. So I have a few announcements here for our board members. First off, the Neighborhood Council Core Institute. Last year, the department held 3 highly recommended training sessions open to all board members, but tailored for folks that are new to the Neighborhood Council system. The 3 modules that were recorded are now available in a new website, a new webpage in our website, empowerla.org/workshops-trainings/. Also recently added was the hosting candidate forums for neighborhood councils. So if you didn't get a chance to attend that a few weeks ago, that's also recorded and now available on that webpage. Coming up, also a very highly recommended session under the Neighborhood Council Institute, Core Institute, is the virtual town hall on community impact statements. So as you know, as board members, community impact statements are one of your more influential tools to impact decision-making at City Hall. So save the date. It's Thursday, March 31st from 6 to 9. And as far as I know, the link to RSVP is not yet available, but please mark your calendars to attend that. And if you're not able to attend that evening, we'll send everybody through your NC profiles the link to the recording. And as well, we'll have it housed in the new webpage. For those interested in brushing up on your funding or interested in getting to know how neighborhood purpose grants are processed and how neighborhood councils should be administering them, there's one session for financial officers slated for March 22nd at 6 p.m. And the neighborhood purpose grants workshop is scheduled for March 17th at 6 p.m. So those sessions are, the RSVPs are located in the city clerk's webpage as well as your NC profiles. And next, quick reminder, your bylaw amendments applications, and I know you have an agenda or 2 items on your agenda with regards to bylaw amendments. The application for those are due to the department April 1st. So if you need a little bit of assistance with that, reach out, don't hesitate. And also, if there are any board structure changes in your proposed amendments, the city clerk's office is also available to review those beforehand with you. So, and we can always set up a meeting. All 3 of us can join with the bylaw committee chair. And last but not least, in preparation of the 2023 neighborhood council elections, it seems far off, but it's fast approaching. So the department is organizing itself to roll out its plans and strategies to promote the system citywide for all 99 neighborhood councils. But we're also reaching out to the individual neighborhood councils and meeting one-on-one. So we want to extend an invitation to the outreach chairs and vice chairs to meet with me and possibly Tom Sung, my director, my supervisor, to listen to your plans. Kind of get started with the process of thinking about how you want to see your outreach and engagement, promote your neighborhood council, start inviting new folks to your meetings to get to know them. I know Northwest San Pedro is very good at engaging new folks, getting them on committee and eventually onto the board. So thank you for that. But we're also listening to see what opportunities there are for collaboration and highlighting tools that maybe we forgot about to share with you all, or that you forgot to use last time. But we're also going to review your voter turnout last time to see where you are, where you want to go, and go from there and see opportunities for improvement if there are any. So with that, I extend that invitation for your outreach chairs for anytime this month, next month, the following month. We'll work out a schedule. Doesn't have to be long. It can be about an hour. We'll work out the details then. Last but not least, I think that's it. Yep. The commission's still reviewing the digital communications policy as well as the code of conduct policy, as you may be aware. And of course, you have your commissioner on your board. So you're one of the few privileged neighborhood councils that has a board of neighborhood commissioner on your board. So thank you, Commissioner, for your service on there and your dual service on this board now. So thank you for that. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
It's always good to see and hear from you, Octaviano.
Thank you, Christian.
Maglio.
Hi, Octaviano's John DeMeglio. Just wondering, are they gonna run it, the elections, the same exact way they did the last ones?
They're still discussing that. I believe last time I heard at a public meeting, they were all options were on the table to see what's going to work, and assuming that the pandemic is long gone, we'll see if an in-person option will be discussed and ultimately implemented. So just keep your eyes and ears open to opportunities to provide feedback, but also to meet with the city clerk's office about their plans to administer the elections in 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Gwen Henry, did you have your hand up?
I'll pass. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Octaviano. And I think I saw Sean Kearns raise their hand. Do you represent an office nearby? Would you like to speak?
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Christian. Yes, my name is Sean, and I'm from the office of Congresswoman Annette Barragan. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak this evening. I just wanted to share a couple of quick updates on behalf of the Congresswoman. Probably most importantly, late last week, the House and Senate passed the federal spending bill, which was long overdue. Usually this is something that they try to reach a target goal of in October 1st of the year prior. And this year it took into March. And while it took longer than we would have liked, the good news is that there is a lot of funding provided for some of our essential housing, education, health programs, amongst others. But also this year, they introduced community project funding, which allowed each member to submit up to 10 projects within their congressional district to receive direct funding through the appropriations bills. So almost in a way like a one-time grant for these projects. And so within the Congresswoman's district, we were able to secure $7.5 million. Some of the projects that were funded within the harbor area include $2 million for the YWCA of the harbor area to support, to construct supportive transitional housing for mothers and children in the harbor area. And then also $1 million for the harbor community health centers to build out a new health clinic on the ground floor of housing development currently being constructed over on 9th Street. There was also $500,000 in there for the Boys and Girls Club of the LA Harbor to support their college bound program in Wilmington as well. I also wanted to share that last month, the Congresswoman introduced the EVs for All Act. For anyone interested, that is bill number HR 6662. And what this program would do is develop a grant program through the Department of Energy to support public housing agencies with building EV car share programs. And this is largely modeled off of an existing program right here in San Pedro, over at Rancho San Pedro, in which the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator and the Housing Authority for the City of Los Angeles and others partnered to purchase 2 vehicles, which residents at the public housing site are able to rent and are largely using them for essential tasks, going to medical appointments, going to grocery stores and other necessities. So with the Congresswoman's legislation, our goal is to hope to support similar programs at public housing sites across the nation. I also thought it'd be important to share with you that there was critical funding secured to assist with the DDT ocean dump site surveying and mapping. And I'm referring specifically to the dump site that was found in the San Pedro Channel. So we really need to give our thanks to Senator Feinstein, as she was the one who was able to secure $5.5 million for that project, which will be critical to understanding next steps as the federal and state agencies collaborate on addressing that issue. Again, I want to thank the Neighborhood Council for allowing me to speak. Thank you, Christian, and I hope you all have a great evening.
You as well. I think maybe we have a couple of comments or questions. Laurie Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. Thank you, Sean. So a couple of things. I want to praise Sean because he's very responsive to requests. And last week he was able to help me with a gentleman who came over from Ukraine and had no place to go. And he got me involved in learning about the repatriation program. And he was quick to respond. And he has been on several instances. Also, he showed up at the CD15 working group on homelessness. He's a good community partner. Congressmember Barragan is a good community partner. And for most of you, if you don't realize, a good chunk of Northwest is currently under Congressmember Liu, but the redistricting has changed that. And all of San Pedro will, once that change happens towards the end of the year, will be under Congressmember Barragan. So I just want to thank you, Sean, for being so accessible and helping me through an issue last week. And hopefully our council can come to you for other issues that come up. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Laurie, and congratulations again on being recognized for all your service in our community by the San Pedro Chamber. It was well-deserved and overdue honor.
John DeMeglio.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thank you for all you guys do. You guys are really up on everything. And I just really concerned about that 9th Street YWCA and when it's going to actually start coming into play, because it's been there for a long time, ran down for a long time, and I just wondered, when's that going to start? Thank you.
Well, that's a great question, John, and I wish there were folks from the YWCA to field that question, as they would be able to offer a more precise start date. But I will say that because of the funding that they secured through the federal government, we're expecting to receive instructions shortly for the time length in which that funding needs to be spent for the specific project. It will almost certainly be within 1 year's time. So I would imagine we'll be seeing significant progress within the next year. But certainly we'll be in touch with YWCA and hopefully have more concrete details when we meet again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any first responders or public safety representatives? Anyone from the Port Police or the LAPD? If so, raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Okay, then we'll go right over to our consent calendar, which is item number 7. So the consent calendar items will all be taken together unless someone from the board wants an item to be taken up separately.
Can you put the consent calendar that up? I can't see it.
Okay. Do you mean the items, like which ones? Yeah, okay, here we go. So we have A through D there. Alrighty then, well, Mr. Secretary, go ahead and call the roll then.
John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DeMeglio, John DeMeglio, Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
I'm sorry, John, yes, I got out for a second. John, yes.
Cynthia got it, John. Thank you. Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
David Semperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
Ray Regalado.
Yes.
We have 16 ayes. So of the people here, that's unanimous. So it carries.
Okay, very good. Madam Treasurer, are you ready to do your fundraising refresher, number 8?
Alrighty. Okay, so what we're gonna do is a basic refresher on requesting money for either events or particular items. It's pretty much the same process. One thing I want to emphasize is when you're requesting funding, the first thing you need to remember is this is public funds. It is not neighborhood council funds. It is not your money for your committee. It is not my money as treasurer. It is public funds. It comes from our taxpayers. So when we spend this money, we need to spend it accordingly with thought of the public and thought of benefit for our neighborhood council. Does it benefit Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council when we're spending this money? The other thing is stakeholders cannot request funding. All funding needs to go through whoever the chair is. Only the chair can request the funding. Stakeholders are not part of the board, nor are they funding trained or funding approved. All funding requests need to go through the chair and the board member. So basically what we have here is your committee funding requests. The committee has to have a topic listed on the committee meeting agenda to be considered. Quorum must be present at the committee to meet the vote. Request for funding form, which I'll show you what it is, must be completed by the committee chair that includes a budget. This means it needs to be a detailed budget, not an invoice, a detailed budget of what the money is, the taxes, what shipping is. Include all kinds of materials that maybe may arise to install something or to any extra buffer that you may need on the money, because you cannot overspend what you budget. If it goes over the amount that you've budgeted, as Gwen can tell you, that's happened before, it stalls the event going through or the funding request going through because you haven't requested enough money and it has to come back to the board for reapproval. And it makes the whole process a lot longer. Requests are submitted to the Budget and Finance Committee. What the Budget and Finance Committee does is it reviews to ensure the funds are available, where the funding is going to come from, and if all criteria has been met, like the detailed budget. Then it goes to the board the following meeting. Board vote, the board is who are the ones that decide where the money is spent. Budget and Finance and myself are just custodians to make sure that the funding rules are followed and we have the money to fund it. All the documents are put together after it goes to the board, and then I submit them to the city clerk for the process of the funding to get approval. The city clerk has to approve all, and this is for events. They have to approve everything before you can even spend a dime on the event or commit to it. I cannot use the credit card or anything until that has happened and we've received approval. The other thing is, no individual, if we're doing, say, sponsorships or grants, no one should be promising money to anyone until the board has voted on it and it's cleared the city clerk. We can never promise money to somebody and guarantee them that they're going to get money. And this is the form. I can send these out to the committee. We had these last year, but we haven't had anything really to fund right now. So I think a lot of this has gone away because there's been nothing being funded at this time. But as we're starting to open up and we might be doing events, I felt that this was important to go over now so that we are clear as to what you need to do events and to get things funded. So any questions? Gwen?
Once again, would you please clarify that once it's gone through committee, a committee that had a quorum, and that there was a detailed budget on the item, that there also should be clearances on permitting and things like that? Should that also have been
Right, right. So, right. So, what Gwen's saying about permitting that, thank you, Gwen. So any type of agreements or permits or easements or anything else that you may have to sign, you cannot. Christian cannot. I cannot. Nobody can sign it from the board. It has to come to me, the treasurer, and I submit it to the contract person at the city clerk's office. He then looks at it, reviews it, and at that point, then he sends it back, and either Christian can digi-sign it or I can. And then we're good to go. But nobody on the board can enter into any agreements with anybody at all.
And again, the other point of clarification, sorry, there was that second part. Once again, the committee, it comes through the committee chair, then goes to the budget and finance committee, and then goes to
and then
the
the
board.
right, and the committee brings it to the board.
President is the only one who actually does the requesting, correct?
The board president what?
Is the only one who really is doing the requesting, correct? It's coming.
Board president? No.
Well, I wanted the clarification as to the hands off. You said no individual committee member. It has to come from a.
It has to come from the chair of the committee.
Right.
That if he wants to appoint, a board member is the only person that can be involved in funding. A stakeholder cannot.
That includes the chair.
The chair can, if they've been appointed a chair on a committee.
Okay, that I just wanted to make sure everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Vic?
But if that chair is not a board member, do they still have to go through the appropriate training like board members would to be able to act on funding issues?
You know, we have nothing in our bylaws stating that, but I really think it would probably be a good idea that they're aware of what the funding rules are if they're going to request funding. I think the chair of committee should all have the funding training. It's only a 20-minute video, I think, unless they've extended it for the basic funding training. It'd be good that they did that. I think that'd be something to add, that all committee chairs should, stakeholders or board members should have that training. I think it's important. If you're going to chair, you should have all the trainings, really, if you're going to be a chair, the same as a board member. But that's my opinion.
Well, to support that, I did go through some of the funding training that the budget people did.
Mr. Vice President, hand up. Let's recognize Mr. Vice President. Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to, I guess, ask, possibly state, I don't believe that if you're not if you're a stakeholder, that is, if you're not an elected board member, I don't know if those trainings are available. That would be something that I don't know what Dunn's, and I think Octaviano is probably still on the meeting, but maybe someone could provide clarification as to whether a stakeholder would even have access to an account to see those videos. I don't know if there's a pathway for them to get the training.
I thought during elections, Chris, that the people that were running were able to take their training ahead of time, that stakeholders have been able in the past.
I wouldn't know that in particular, but I guess I'm wondering as much as stating, if someone, let's just say, tomorrow becomes appointed as a chair of a committee, what would be the process by which they'd have access to the training if that were either required or desirable? Because I'm not sure if it's there.
Okay. Yeah. Octaviano?
His name was mentioned. Yeah, let's see if he has a response, and then we'll take the next person, which I believe was Craig. So go ahead, Octaviano.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's Octaviano, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. The official training for board members is not available per se in terms of the cornerstone, but I know that the trainings at the city clerk's office, neighborhood council funding program, their staff opens up those trainings to not just board members, but stakeholders. And because it's online and they want to keep the workshops small, so they're more productive in terms of answering questions, they're limited in terms of the number of people that can attend. So first come, first serve, essentially. So you can have access to a lot of those trainings that financial officers have. And then in addition to that, they're on their website, their webpage for the resources, their guidelines and policies has a pretty nice summary of what the roles and responsibilities are of financial officers. So that gives them additional awareness of what it takes to be a good steward of public funds. So the trainings and resources are out there if they're willing to participate. We can talk offline more about how some of these chairs can do that.
Thank you, Octaviano. Craig?
Yeah, it might behoove us to make sure that all our committee chairs are board members because of the financial and the ethical requirements. But and we should look at that now that we're doing the bylaws again. There are more than a few times, and I even in committee meetings, in the last committee meeting of the port committee, I kept telling people you couldn't do this by the financial rules, and the non-board members had a hard time understanding.
Laurie Jacobs, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, just a quick comment that we've always allowed, the Northwest Neighborhood Council has always allowed committee chairs to not necessarily be board members. I don't see a need to change that. The basic trainings that they need, the information's available and Melanie can send them the requirements. I don't think they need to have a full training.
No.
So I just have concerns there that we do have some great committee chairs who may not be board members. I'd hate to see that change.
Cynthia?
Yeah, I disagree that they shouldn't have the full training. If they're going to be able to exercise the full rights that we have, then they should have to take the same full training we do. I mean, if they wanted to sit on the board, fine, but if they want to head the board, then they should have the training. They should know what's happening. That's my
opinion. What she's talking about full was the 2-hour funding training.
Yes,
just the
thank you, Melanie.
The 20-minute one, I think would be good enough that you take and everybody else takes. Just to have some knowledge of it, the basics. Gwen?
Well, one of the funding trainings that we are all obligated to have has nothing to do with budgeting. It's ethics and other issues that are larger to the responsibilities of being a board member, which have nothing to do and are not pertinent to building an event and building a budget. That's a different issue entirely.
The other thing is too, that on this last piece here, any merchandise that we order or any type of stuff that you would have sent to you or whatever, it has to go to Christina's address. Nothing can be sent to your home. So anything that I would order for you for, say, your event, say you planned, or say you're doing sustainability event like Wild Fest, and you've got this stuff, flyers and all this and banners and stuff that you ordered, it's going to be delivered to Christina's office, and you're going to have to arrange to go pick it up from her, because we are not allowed as board members to have any property of neighborhood councils at our homes. Any other questions? Okay, so that wraps that up. So I guess I move on, Christian, to budget and finance.
Yes, we're doing I hope you're prepared to speak a lot because you're up several
Yeah, I
times
know.
now.
Oh, people are gonna get sick of hearing my voice here. Sorry. So first up is the MER. Again, because these things are computer generated and they don't generate until like the 5th, the 6th or 7th of the month. If our meeting falls on the first, it always is the first Wednesday of the month. So we fall sometimes like on the 2nd, that's before it generates. So we don't have time to ability to review it, I should say, for our budget and finance meeting. So this is not at a committee. So this, I'm going to need a first and a second and a vote.
So moved.
So,
Gwen Henry.
Second.
So Gwen moved. Who's second?
Thomas Norman, right?
Oh, Thomas. Okay. Any discussion? Call for the vote. Thomas?
Aye.
Dave?
Yes.
John Barbera?
Yes.
Vic?
Aye.
Ray?
Yes.
John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Christian?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Chris Valier?
Yes.
And then Adrianita.
Yes.
Okay, next is the budget. And basically the same as the MER, $29,627.32 left. And we just had minutes, and the minute taker and Christina is all we paid out. And then we also paid for the Hank website finally. So this is out of committee, so any discussion? Nothing. Okay, call for the vote. Thomas?
Aye.
Dave Samperio?
Yes.
John Barbera?
Yes.
Vic?
Aye.
Ray?
Yes.
John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Dan Dixon? He's not here, sorry. Craig?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Christian?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie? Kelly?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Chris Valier?
Yes.
And Adrianita?
Yes.
Okay, so next. Scroll, nope, not that. Here, okay. The Public Safety Committee had several CISs that we did. This first one is about RVs, protecting residents where the RVs are dwelling, and a study to see how much the relevance between crimes, the corridors where crimes are happening in the RVs. And so they're directing LAB to report on violent property crimes organizing from within the corridors of populated wrecked vehicles. So this is the CIS. The Board of Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council supports Council File 21-1465 to have LAPD report on violent and property crimes originating or occurring within corridors populated with wrecked vehicles. This is out of committee, so any discussion? Gwen?
So this is actually a fact that is not actually when they take statistics. This is something that they don't actually focus on and create a data collection for that will be added to the report. So this is
Right.
an added collection.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, call for the vote. Thomas?
Yes.
Dave Sampirio?
Yes.
John Barbera?
Yes.
Vic?
Aye.
Ray?
Yes.
John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Christian?
Abstain.
Okay. Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Adrianita?
Yes.
Okay. So the next one.
Wait, can I make a quick comment? Am I allowed to vote on these or not? Because I'm not
Oh,
sure.
you are. I'm sorry. You can. I'm sorry. I'm just so used to doing funding tally that I
Yeah,
skipped over
yeah,
yet.
that's fine. But
Um,
my vote would be yes, by the way.
Okay, thank you. So this is basically to condense this. What this is, and they're working on it right now actually, because they know this file is in works for LAPD Harbor Division. And what it's focusing on is to make the LAPD work more better and expand the program with neighborhood watches, as well as expand their website and expand to have things that help the neighborhood watch programs and improve community public safety to better it. And so they're revamping the whole program basically. And so Council File 21-0869, the Board of Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council supports File 210869. Crime and public safety are of great concern to stakeholders in Northwest San Pedro area, and upgrades to LAPD website will help improve community public safety. We support council motion directing LAPD and other city agencies to technically advance LAPD's tools for interacting with the public and mobilizing, organizing neighborhood watch efforts. Any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Thomas?
Aye.
Dave Sampirio?
Yes.
John Barbera?
Yes.
Vic?
Aye.
Ray?
Yes.
John DeMeglio?
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Christian?
I abstain.
Abstain? Okay. Gwen?
Yes.
Melanie, yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Chris Valier?
Yes.
Alec?
Yes.
Adrianita?
Yes.
Okay. Next one. Okay, this one is a council file to make it illegal to operate a chop shop, to disassemble or sell or any activity of the bicycles on the sidewalks or the street, on public property within the public right of way, with specific exceptions for licensed businesses, and for individuals making repairs or present while repairs are being made to their own bicycles. It moved that the city be requested to prepare and present a draft ordinance to prohibit the assembly, disassembly, sale, offer of sale, distribution of bicycles and bicycle parts on public property or within the public right of way, modeled after a similar ordinance in Long Beach. So this is the council file that we wrote. The Board of Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council supports Council File 21-1115 to prohibit the assembly, disassembly, sale, offer of sale, and distribution of bicycles and bicycle parts on public property or within the public right of way, modeled after a similar ordinance in the city of Long Beach. It's out of committee discussion. Lori?
Yeah, I just want to understand. So I imagine what this is addressing is the amount of bicycles that are stolen and resold.
Right. The chop shops. Basically.
Right, I understand, but I would think that most of them are not doing it on like visibly. So what would be the recourse to if somebody did this? Is this a misdemeanor? Is that what they're saying?
Let me look back. They don't say.
So that's just one of my issues. There has to be enough teeth in here.
Right. It says that number of bicycles being reported stolen each year, and even more stolen but not reported to the authorities. Unfortunately, a majority of stolen bicycles are not recovered. Bicycle chop shop spaces where individuals take apart stolen bicycles, sell parts, and reassemble bikes operate across the city, often right in public right of way. Thieves have little or no fear to repercussions, as this activity is not expressly illegal and police do not have the resources to check every bicycle being disassembled.
Right, no, I read that and I understand that. I'm just asking the question that if you want teeth, if you want there to be repercussions, okay, if somebody just gets a slap on the wrist and they get to continue, you know, I'd love to see this motion have a little more explanation if what will happen if they find somebody who does this. Are they just going to get a little fine? Are they going to be arrested? What type of action will be taken? Otherwise, it really will, people will continue because they'll just go.
Right. I think that's why it's going to the city attorney first.
Okay, so that would be the next step for them to tell us. Okay, thank you, Melanie.
Okay, Madam Treasurer, before we proceed, let's try to limit the kind of crosstalk. If you have make a comment, if you want to make an amendment, you can move to amend it, or if you want to send it back to the committee, we could do that. But let's try to minimize the crosstalk so that way everyone gets a chance to speak on it. I think I saw Pat Nave. Pat Nave.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, the answer to Lori's question is in the last paragraph with the use of the word ordinance. Violation of an ordinance in the municipal code is a misdemeanor under the law, punishable by up to $1,000 or up to a year in the county jail.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Pat, for clearing that up. I think I saw a few council members. Go ahead, Craig Goldfarb.
Though I doubt anybody's not going to support this. I support it. I've seen so many bike chop shops on the streets around the places I work in downtown Los Angeles. It's incredible. And a few of the places I work by are right next to USC, and the number of bikes they pick up it's a huge number. So I think this is a really good move, and hopefully the city attorney hopefully this would put a dent in it.
Gwen Henry.
Melanie, is there any report as to the success or failures of the Long Beach ordinance? Because I can see a couple of problems here that kind of make me nervous with profiling and you know, somebody who's got a bike, you know,
It's very successful in Long Beach.
In what way are they mostly
That
focused?
they don't have chop shops. People, there's theft and bike has gone way down. Now we've got it here, large theft of bike numbers here.
So does it focus mostly on larger groups and clear organizations? Because I could easily see somebody repairing their bike on the street, you know, and
That's one thing if it's one person.
That's what I'm trying to ask. Is there, what has Long Beach done?
Can I clarify, Christian?
Yes, go ahead and clarify it, but I think, hold on, before you clarify it, Gwen, did you have additional comment or was that the end of your comments?
That's the end of it.
I
Okay,
think
go ahead and clarify.
what they're trying to segregate is like over, I'll use as an example, 5 points. Underneath there, when they cleaned that up the first time, they found piles and piles of bikes in there. And on Beacon Street, same thing. And what they're looking at is like groups of, they have like a factory like thing going on, chop shop, where they're doing it, not just one individual taking care of their bike.
David Samperio.
Yeah, just my dad lives on Mason O'Farrell, and right there, right below Pacific and Sepulveda, across the street from the car wash, there's a person who has a big van and just loads of parts of bikes. And it's just, I don't know how he gets away with it, and he clears out for a day and then comes back. So it's, you know, I've seen, that's the one I've seen because I visit when I go to visit my dad. But it's, yeah, it's not a person just fixing their bike. There's people that I've seen waiting to get their bike fixed, quote unquote fixed. And so there are a couple in San Pedro that I've seen, but that's the one I've seen all the time. So just to say this is a good thing. That's all.
Thank you. Out of personal experience, I've had 3 bikes stolen. I had another bike almost stolen. They have some pretty incredible tools they use to steal bikes, and I've seen 2 of them around the streets, and they paint the bikes and then they swap parts on the bike. So I think this will hopefully be good. And anyone who's fixing their bike, there's one person. I mean, I've had flats on the street and I fix my bike and I got one bike and then I move on once the bike's fixed. So I think this will be excellent. Chris Valle.
Thanks. Just briefly, I'd like to point out that, yes, it's always possible that when you have an ordinance or, you know, there's heightened focus on a particular activity, that somebody might be, you know, kind of erroneously targeted or whatever. But consider that the protection for all of the people who rely on their bicycles as their primary mode of transportation. And so those are the people who are being most victimized. You know, like for myself, I have a bike that I ride when I feel like it, but there was a time when I had a bike that I had, you know, to get to school or to get to work. If someone had taken it, it would have, you know, really wrecked my life. And so I think that, you know, they're all coming from somewhere and some of those people really need them. So, you know, just replace the word bike with car and, you know, think about the impact to someone's life it might have. And if you can minimize the presence of that kind of activity, it can protect people's livelihoods in some cases.
Any other questions? We'll call for the vote. Thomas,
Aye.
Dave Samperio,
Yes.
John Barbera,
Yes.
Victor,
Aye.
Ray,
Yes.
John DeMeglio,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Melanie, yes, Kelly,
Yes.
Angela,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
Adrianita.
Yes.
Okay, and then the last one, Oops, I gotta go over here. Okay, so this
Didn't you have to go back to somebody? He said to come back to him.
Mm-mm. No. This one is to, basically it's to provide it's based on the mental health thing that Lori was talking about. And what it does is they designated the 988 number, and now what they want to do is have an American Rescue Plan that mobilizes crisis teams. And what they want to do is between the therapeutic van, Circle, and CREST programs, seek to scale up community-based crisis response teams and a key component to crisis continuum. So what they want to do is have the Chief Legislative General Services Department find spaces to transform a community crisis resource center where mobile crisis response teams can be deployed and report back. And that way they have these mobile crisis centers that can be right there to mobilize for mental health problems. So this council file, the Board of Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council, Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council supports Council File 220037 to build out crisis continuum of care, local, county, state, and federal levels to include a crisis call center, mobile crisis response, walk-in urgent care, secure crisis center and support services, and intensive outpatient services. We support identifying community spaces that can be transformed into community crisis resource centers where groups like Circle and CREST can be deployed. We also support the implementation of 988 hotline system for mental health crisis and expansion of mental health mobile crisis teams. So this out of committee, Lori.
Thank you so much for bringing this to the board's attention and for supporting this. Addressing mental health issues is critical to some of the solutions in addressing homelessness. And the beauty of the or benefits of the 988 number as opposed to 911 is there's many situations with mental health where law enforcement showing up on scene will actually re-traumatize the person. And the police are really not trained for this. So thank you very much. I hope the board will support this. Thank you, Melanie.
Any other comments? Okay, call for the vote then. Thomas,
Yes.
Dave Samperio,
Yes.
John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic,
Aye.
Ray,
Yes.
D'Amelio,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Melanie, yes, Kelly,
Yes.
Angela,
Yes.
Chris Valier,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
and Adrianita.
Yes.
There, and I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Madam Treasurer. Let us move on now then to the Bylaws and Elections Committee. Do we have Diana Nave here? Do you want to present the motions?
She should be in as a panelist. I think I promoted her. There she is. Yeah.
I think she has the ability to speak though. Diana Nave, are you here? Do you want to present the motions?
Yes, they just gave me a thing so I could unmute. So I would like to, thank you, good evening. But I would like to be upgraded actually so that I can screen share. And
okay,
before we get to that, while you're doing that, I want to commend Melanie and the Public Safety Committee for those excellent motions.
Here, here.
Okay, good evening again. Now, can you upgrade me so that I can screen share?
Where are
Yeah,
you?
Vic's gonna have to do that one.
Oh, there we go. I was trying to find her name. It moved. Okay.
Okay, thank you. At the last board meeting, this board adopted a number of changes to the bylaws. At that time, I told you that several of the changes that had been proposed by Vic Christensen, while consistent with the existing bylaws, went beyond technical changes. And since he had not submitted them in time to be published with the agenda, they could not be considered at that meeting. So since then, the bylaws committee did meet and did consider them and approve further changes. It's those further changes that you have before you tonight. For the most part, the changes are for consistency and clarification. The main changes are in section 2, purpose. We've added language to include military status and any other protected class in here in terms of the non-discrimination. The next,
Are you showing the screen share on this?
I see it. Okay, I did it
There's no
wrong.
screen share. No, you didn't do it. Vic, she's not co-host.
She's co-host, Gwen.
Yes, she is.
Let me put it down and try again. I think I probably made a mistake.
Now she is.
Share screen. Yes, I think I made a mistake in how I did it.
Open it first, Diane, and then hit screen share.
There you go. Now it's coming.
Okay, sorry, thank you. I'll learn to do this. So the first one was in Article 2 under purpose. That's the one I just mentioned where it added military status and other legally recognized protected categories in terms of non-discrimination. The second one is in Article 5, Section 3. And this one simply added language after it talks about what the youth member cannot vote on. It just clarifies that the youth member may vote on all other matters. And then Article 5, Section 5, duties and powers. It added a sentence to say that the membership rosters with personal and private contact information are for board, committee chair, liaison use only. It shouldn't be distributed outside of that. And then the very last one, the rest of these were just mostly either consistency or just places where they accidentally got deleted and got re-entered. Last one was under training. And the wording here is that in the event that Dunn is unable to successfully allow a board member into the training platform, the board may, at its option, vote to extend the time for completion. So these are the ones that were approved in the committee. Since that time, Victor has proposed some additional changes that were published with the agenda packet, and therefore, if he wants to introduce them, they would be considered as amendments to the motion that came out of committee.
Yes, I will move to amend.
And do you need a second?
Second.
Who was the second? Was that Thomas Norman?
Do you want a second before you see what his amendments are?
Well, I guess I'd like to see them, but they're in the packet.
Oh, yeah, good. I'm sorry. Christian, that ended my report.
Okay, well, the amendment's been moved and seconded. Is there comments? Vic, do you want to introduce comment on the amendment?
Well, are we gonna bring up the amendment so everybody can see it?
Or did someone else need to
Does
share the screen?
Diana needs to stop screen share and I can bring them up.
So before I stop screen sharing, was there any other questions? Okay, I'll stop screen sharing.
Or I can, because I already have them up too, Melanie, so.
We do a side by side.
Yeah,
Uh,
go ahead, Vic, if you want.
okay, you'll be able to, I can do effectively side by side. Come on.
Madam Minute Taker, did you have a question on the motion? It was motioned by Vic Christensen and seconded by Thomas Norman. Did you have a question about that?
No, that's what I needed. I caught one name, but not the other. Thank you.
Continue, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah, my beach ball to stop spinning. Okay, stop already. Here we go. Okay, is this visible?
Yes.
We can, no.
Was that it? Okay. All right, this is the First Amendment. The red and the purple are part of the current proposed wording. So I just left those in there so you could see what's there, what's being proposed now. The blue wording is my amendment for this part. It's basically covering what, like in other parts of the bylaws, when a person, if they can't vote, then what is their status? So this is just to be a little more consistent with what's in other parts of the bylaws about if they have lost their voting rights, then they wouldn't be counted as part of the board for any quorum and would not participate in any board actions. And, you know, part of the rationale is that if they can't vote, there's no reason to count them as a part of the quorum. And because they can't vote, they also can't participate on board actions anyway. So this is kind of for consistency and to, in a way, state the obvious.
Okay, are there any comments on the amendment then? Go ahead, Councilman Craig Goldfarb.
Yeah, this is a little unclear. And it does, since, and especially I think in the other part of the voting of the board, that if you're there, they count, they automatically, if you don't vote, they automatically count you as abstaining. So maybe we need to go back and look at this if we're gonna, at the other part also.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments on the amendment?
Cynthia's
Go
got
ahead,
her.
Cynthia.
I have a question. When Craig asked his question, are we going to go with and consider what he has? Or are we going to just vote? The next vote we have will just be on what we have and take everything like we have it already. I'm just confused on what we're going to be voting on.
Sure, with if what Craig has. and
Because
is a
Greg said
sub-
we should Yeah, Craig
Yeah.
said we should wait and try and match that up with what we have. And I'm thinking
Okay.
that would be a good idea to put it all together. Or are we just not doing what Craig said right now, doing that later and then doing this just now? So that our bylaws aren't going to match.
Well, I think right now we have one amendment. I'm not sure if Craig has a substitution to this amendment or if he has additional ideas. We can ask him. And then I think Diana had her hand up. So Craig, did you have like an amendment to this amendment, or did you have an idea on something?
I mean, Diana's probably got her finger on what I know. She knows what I'm talking about. So I think they sort of conflict. So let's hear from her.
Okay, go ahead, Diana.
Actually, that wasn't why I had my hand up, Craig. I don't think that this conflicts. Why I had my hand up was to point out that all amendments to the bylaws are due April 1. So anything that you want to amend needs to be voted on tonight, or it can't be voted on for another 2 years. On the other hand, you could do clarifications later in the standing rules if you wanted. So that was what I had my hand up for.
Okay, thank you. I think that I would just say before we proceed with the discussion, we've had a lot of time to go over the bylaws and make suggestions and amendments. So if we can't do it tonight, I think that we won't be able to do it, as Diana said, for the next 2 years. So if you have any additional amendments or additions, tonight is the time. And so we will take those. And so go ahead. Let's see whose hand is up. Go ahead, Thomas Norman.
Yeah, thank you. I take your recommendation. I just wanted to speak in favor of taking the amendments one at a time, voting on the amendments, and then the entire document as a way forward. And I'm in favor of this amendment as written.
Okay. Vic, as the introducer of the amendment, did you want to speak a second time?
Yes, just a quick answer to Craig's comment is the reason it's worded like this is because, you know, as I say down at the bottom, it's the same wording as is in those other two parts of the bylaws.
Yeah.
So it's not in conflict.
Okay, go ahead, Gwen.
Or not.
Okay, then if there's no other comment, we're gonna vote on this amendment, and then if we have additional amendments, we can take those as well then. So go ahead then, Mr. Secretary.
Okay, John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DeMiglio,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
Ray Regalado,
Yes.
David Semperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle.
Yes.
Okay, it is unanimous, so that amendment carries. I have a second amendment that I will also move to amend,
Second.
and it's, come on, spinning beach ball, just to show you that this is the second one. Again, the purple and the red wording are what's currently proposed. And the blue is the new wording. This one, the current wording is only talking about if people can't access the training platform, and there are issues that have come up that are after people have accessed the platform. So what I did is make it a little more comprehensive, that if there is any reason that is related to the training platform, which would mean whether you can't log in, whether there's something that goes wrong after you log in, whatever the case may be, that the board at its option, may vote to extend the time for completion. There's no obligation that they extend the time. They would take that on a case-by-case basis and could decide to do it or not to do it. So the amendment is to replace the purple wording with the blue wording.
Mr. Vice President.
Thanks. Yeah, just as somebody who's had significant technical problems with a good faith effort to get the training done on a couple of occasions, I can tell you that, you know, it's possible that there can be problems with people who do everything that they've been instructed to do to complete the training, and then have, you know, whether it's a technical issue or just a design of the website or any number of things that, you know, means that they've already put their time into trying to satisfy the requirement, but the back end of the cornerstone or whatever wasn't up to it at the time. So I think it makes sense that the board should be able to take that into consideration and, you know, give some flexibility.
Councilman Craig Goldfarb.
This is basically the same change you try that Vic did at the board at our committee meeting, and the committee resolved to stay with the purple. They're essentially saying the same thing. He's just trying, I think he's making it overcomplicated. It's still up to the board to decide whether they should accept you or not. And I vote we stay with I think we should stay with the original amendment, and not the amendment.
Okay. Councilwoman Gwen Henry.
I believe that the second wording actually broadens it a bit more. Both are a little bit specific to technical problems with the training platform, but the purple wording specifically says that if Dunn is unable to successfully allow a board member into the training platform, that's a particular type of condition, whereas the other one seems to be more broad with due to a problem with the Dunn training platform, which is less specific and doesn't sound accusatory towards any individuals or team members on the tech team over at the board. I mean, at Dunn. Thank you.
Madam Treasurer.
Yeah, I think Victor's amendment expands it a little bit, where it talks about that it includes that you've reached out and they haven't been able to resolve the problems, and then it's gone on for 60 days, rather than just say, oh, I had problems, that's why I didn't get in. It confirms that you've reached out and you've gone through all that, and now because you've gone through all the steps, then you can extend it. The 60 days, it can go before the board to extend. The other one kind of leaves it vague. I can say, oh, I couldn't get in, so I didn't do my training, when really I didn't get around to it. And this is more, you know, makes it more like you've got to go through these steps and then you can have the board extend it for you.
Thomas Norman.
You know, that's my reading as well. You know, I favor the amended version, in that I would feel it'd be incumbent on us then to verify what's done and to go through a process that, you know, they would have to take blame, and, you know, it would kind of slow down the board's ability to just listen to the facts of the matter. So I think blue will be easier for us to deal with in that case, but, you know, it does permit the board to allow somebody who just didn't get to it to take them at their word, but I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, then do the vote call, Mr. Secretary.
Okay, John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, I. John DeMiglio,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
No.
Cynthia Gagne,
Back to me.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
Ray Regalado,
Yes.
David Samperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne.
I'll abstain.
Okay, we have 14 ayes, 1 nay, 1 abstention, so it carries. And one more. Amendment 3. This one does not depend on the results of the previous 2. I made it so regardless of which one of the previous 2 was adopted, the green wording this time, without the green wording, there's nothing that states what happens to the status of the voting rights during the extension, if the extension is granted. So what this wording says is whatever voting rights the board member had before the extension, they will retain, except for any funding related rights, because there is no leeway on that. We don't have the option to let the board member maintain that, and Melanie can vouch for that. So that's pretty much what this is saying. I know there's a lot more words there, but it's basically saying if you could vote on matters before the extension, then you can vote on them after, unless some of your funding related training has expired. And then once done, fixes the problem, then the member will be given a reasonable amount of time, and that also is consistent with other parts of the bylaws, the word reasonable. That would be decided by the board on what that is, to complete the training. And if they don't complete the training within that amount of time, then they would lose their voting rights as stated up in this area. So there we go. So there's that is the amendment. The green wording would be added, wouldn't replace anything else. It would be added to the rest of the wording in this section.
Okay, was there a second to this amendment?
Second.
Okay. Any comment? Gwen Henry, did you want to comment on it?
Reading through it, and this was kind of the same problem in the bylaws committee. I just want to make sure that it is clear that the affected board, once again, this is not funding, but all board members can vote on other measures. I'm just concerned about those who have never gone through a training versus those who have been on the board before and have gone through a training already, although it has expired. If there are any thoughts on that.
Madam Treasurer?
As far as funding goes, you never can vote. Even now, as a new board member, you can't vote on funding matters until you've taken your training. If your funding expires, you can't vote, period. Whether you still, like with ethics and all of that, you could have that expire and have your funding still intact, and your funding you could still vote for and not vote for the ethics, as long as your funding is up to date. So funding is a big thing. Unless it's up to date, you cannot vote.
Any discussion on the ethics issue for those who have gone through a training and those who are new?
What was your question?
Yeah, Lydia Grant, minute taker, did you want to know who made the motion? Because it was Vic Christensen and then it was seconded by Gwen Henry. Do you have another question?
I just wanted to double check that. Thank you.
Did you want to make a closing statement, Mr. Secretary?
Well, in answer to Gwen's question about somebody who's never had the training versus somebody who has, I think that the best way to handle that would probably be during the decision as to whether or not to grant the extension. Because if somebody has not had the training, then you could just say, I'm not going to grant the extension. That would be one way to handle it, because then they couldn't vote on anything. Just a thought.
Then perhaps that green wording might need a slight amendment. Oh, if so granted. No, never mind. I see the phrase, if so granted. Never mind.
Yeah,
Okay, then. Mr. Secretary, I think that we will move on to the vote then now.
Okay, John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DiMiglio,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
No.
Cynthia Gagne,
No.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
Ray Regalado,
Yes.
David Semperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle.
Yes.
Okay, it's 14 ayes, 2 nays, that carries. And that is all I have. So if Diana needs to reshare the bylaws, then go for it.
Yes, Diana, did you want to go on to the standing rules or are we still on the bylaws?
Well, these were just the amendments, so there's
These
still
were
the
the
complete
amendments. We
bylaws.
have to vote on the bylaws. I call the question.
Okay.
Second.
If there are no. Just
Diana
for the
was,
sake of,
The question
If I could
was
just-
called. There was a second. That means we vote on the ending discussion and then we can go on. No discussion.
I understand. Thank you, Craig. For the sake of not having to vote more, I'm going to forego recognizing the motion and then just instruct the secretary to go on with the vote then. Go on with the vote then, Mr. Secretary of the.
Who seconded that?
It came out of committee. Doesn't need a second.
Oh, correct, sorry. Okay, John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DiMiglio,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
I can't, can you hear me?
we can now.
I can't undo myself. Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
Ray Regalado,
yes.
David Semperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle,
Yes, sorry.
okay, that's unanimous, 16 ayes, so that carries.
Okay, then. So now Are we going to the standing rules then?
Yes, we are.
Do you need to share? Okay.
Yes.
Sharon, skip it.
Great. Yes. So the standing rule, thank you. And you know, Vic, I once again say, I wish you would just join the bylaws committee because you're so good at it. These standing rules, we have just a couple of additions to the standing rules. The first one is that it corrected the name of the Sustainability Committee to Environment and Sustainability, and then added Bylaws and Elections Committee and deleted the Homelessness Committee that we actually never had. The second change is actually just bring it up to the procedure that we've actually been following about when reports are due. The next one is that all of the candidate documentation that we removed from the bylaws, we put over here into the standing rules. It's the same language, just moved. And the rest were just technical and consistency changes. So with that, that's the end of my report on the proposed changes in standing rules. Came out of the committee.
Okay. So Diana, is it correct that we can change these at any time if we
Yes.
know during the meeting?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so are there any comments on these proposed changes? Raise your hand and I will recognize you. Okay, then, Mr. Secretary, go ahead and do the roll.
John Barbera,
Yes.
Dick Christensen, aye. John DeMiglio,
Yes.
Craig Goldfarb,
No.
Cynthia Gagne,
Abstain.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes. Yes.
Adriana Reyes Cruz, Adriana, unmute yourself.
Yes.
Ray Regalado,
Yes.
David Semperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle.
Yes.
Okay, 14 ayes, 1 nay, 1 abstention. That carries.
Thank you. Oops.
Okay, then. Have we completed the bylaws? Are you gonna move on to planning?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Very good, very good.
The first item under planning I want to discuss is a draft resolution asking the city council to create an ordinance that would automatically implement the 2035 mobility plan when streets are repaved and thus repainted. The mobility plan is basically a plan for bicycle and transit routes. Since it was adopted in 2015, the city has actually only implemented 3% of the plan. And a recent LA Times editorial pointed out that at this rate, it would take about 100 years to fully implement the plan. It's important to note, however, that while only 3% has been implemented citywide, in San Pedro, almost 100% has been implemented. The only part not done is the bicycle lane that would be added to Gaffey, starting at 25th Street, going down to Paseo del Mar. And looking at that, there's plenty of space there for a bicycle lane without interfering with traffic. So the resolution before you, basically, I'll go to the second part of it, basically just requests that the city implement this plan when the streets are being repainted anyway. And it came out of committee unanimously.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Craig Goldfarb.
Call the question.
Okay, if there are no other hands, then go ahead, Mr. Secretary, with the vote.
John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, I, John DiMiglio,
No.
Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
Yes. Yes.
Christian Guzman,
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
Ray Regalado,
Yes.
David Samperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle.
Yes.
Okay, 15 ayes, 1 nay, it carries.
Very good. Continue, Diana.
Yes, the next item before you actually has two parts. There's a document entitled Proposed Mitigations and Remediations, and there's an accompanying draft resolution. This document addresses remediations of past port actions that have adversely impacted our community, such as truck damage to our streets, truck routing, and rail horn noise. And it provides specific steps to take to work with the port on remediation of these impacts. The document also serves as a blueprint for mitigations that could be included in comments on port construction projects, such as rail horn quiet zones and implementation of portions of the San Pedro Greening Plan. Finally, the document proposes two policies related to mitigations that could be adopted by the port. The first one relates to something called overriding considerations that has been a controversy for a long time. The second relates to requesting that the Harbor Commission adopt a zero ship emission policy, something the City Council has adopted, but the Board of Harbor Commissioners has not yet adopted. There were a number of different sources that contributed to this document, including the Port Committee, Issues Committee, Joint Planning Committee, the Joint Environmental and Sustainability Committee, the Wilmington Neighborhood Council, and several individuals. At its meeting, the Planning Committee approved the document with 4 yes votes, 1 no, and 1 abstention. But because the discussion was cut short, there was no actual resolution language. The resolution was included in tonight's packet. The resolution endorses the effort to address the impacts of the past port actions and the types of mitigations that are specified in the document, and urges the port to consider the policies relating to overriding considerations and zero emissions. It would also designate Pat Nave and Tom Norman to work with other San Pedro and Wilmington Neighborhood Council representatives, port staff, and/or harbor commissioners to implement the measures and the policy changes outlined in the document. The Central, Coastal, and Wilmington Neighborhood Councils will be asked to pass similar resolutions and to participate in asking the port to implement the policies and remediations. If we work together on this, there's a better chance we can achieve something. Since the resolution was drafted after the committee meeting, it will require a motion and a second in order to be considered tonight.
So moved.
I'll second.
That was Gwen Henry, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, so it was moved by Gwen Henry, seconded by Mr. Vice President Chris Valle. Gwen, since you made the motion, do you want to discuss it? Do you want to make comment?
Having been listened to a couple of the conversations in other committees and being part of the joint sustainability discussion, this is a very solid document. Wilmington participated and was highly appreciative of the sentiments, much of which support their beleaguered community. I had passed forward a Times article to everyone, which supports this, which is topical to this resolution. And I hope you all read it. Thank you.
Madam Treasurer.
Yeah, yeah, I think this is important because our streets are horrible, especially, I mean, Northwest is bad, but even like in central San Pedro area where my mom lives, I go to her house and I'm driving in ditches because the roads are breaking up so bad. They really need, I mean, we deserve more for our tax money than what we're getting for our streets and stuff to be repaired.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Yeah, this is something I brought up specifically with regards to Harry Bridges in the vicinity of Anaheim and to the south of there, where the road surface is really almost unpassable, and it's actually a public safety issue as trucks and cars swerve, change lanes to avoid what, you know, whatever is beyond pothole is there. As well as the north side of that intersection, where again, you almost have to drive off-road to find a reasonable surface. And then even speaking more widely to the condition of the right-of-way, public right-of-way in and around that area, it's a variety of things that could be called, let's say, code violations or lack of maintenance of infrastructure that are directly related to port activities. And I brought this up to CD15 in this forum actually a couple of years ago, and didn't really get much of a committal answer in terms of who was responsible. But I think that means that us trying to advise and suggest that the port take that responsibility as, you know, the #1 container port and the in North America, there's probably the resources available to get the road surfaces and the, you know, to take care of the area that takes care of the port and its, you know, its clients and all that stuff. So it's going to be a quality of life issue for other communities, but I think Northwest has as much a responsibility to kind of push for those improvements as anybody else, because, you know, we're sharing it all.
Regalado.
Yeah, after reading the both documents, I think the one thing that jumped out at me, and I think probably one of the really important aspects of both these documents is the fact that it actually asks the port to work in partnership with the community as opposed to just making arbitrary or decisions on their own. Now, I know in the past, I think we can probably remember times when the port would say, let's get community input, but yet in the past, we have seen those community input timeframes being like 30 days and things like that, which didn't really help neighborhood councils get their due diligence in. So I like the fact that it asks the port to work in conjunction with the the various aspects of community in this thing, because in the long run, if it's done right, if it's done with without confrontation, this thing can really roll into something that is something that can be a program that all city government organizations could work directly with neighborhood councils. So it's a good look for both a city department, in this case the port, and also neighborhood councils. Thank you.
Councilman Craig Goldfarb.
I've not been in favor of this for a while because it doesn't really address the issue. It's trying to attach everything to the port when we really have a problem with public services, public works, street repair, etc. It's not all associated with the port. And this is just limiting it to that respect. And we need to do, and it doesn't really address the problem of getting the port to include certain things in there while they're doing their scoping. But, and that's why I've opposed it. It's just not enough and not in the right places. I mean, you can look at the port is not going to solve the problem of our streets. It's not going to solve the problems of the sidewalks in all the areas across the city, and especially in San Pedro and the lack of sidewalks. So we're going to concentrate on the port and ignore the fact that, you know, Public Works and the other departments that have to do with improving our infrastructure are not going to be addressed and haven't been addressed. So that's why I've opposed this, and I can continue to oppose it because I think we're putting our emphasis in the wrong place and doing it in the wrong way.
Miglio.
Yeah, I just think that there's too much on this one thing to actually get anything done with this. We need to piece this out one by one and address the problem. If you do it as a whole picture deal with everything, it's not gonna. I don't think it's the harbor department's gonna go for anything like this. Thank you.
Okay. This is a clarification to the planning committee or the chair. This wouldn't be misinterpreted to mean that we wouldn't want the port to have any other kind of public workshops on a similar topic? Go ahead, Pat.
I missed a couple of words in that, Christian. Could you say that again?
This wouldn't be misinterpreted to mean in any way that we would not prefer the port to have public input workshops like they sometimes do on various things.
Oh, yeah, no, it should not be interpreted that way.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Pat Nave.
Yeah, before we go further, I want to thank some particular people and groups that contributed to this. You know, up to now, I've been going around and doing these presentations and soliciting, you know, contributions by people to what they saw needed to be addressed. Let's particularly thank Cynthia Gagne. Item number 6 on light pollution came from her. Item number 7 on greening of the port came from a couple of people, particularly Alan Franz, and I think Gwen contributed to that. And particularly the concern over truck traffic and things, the impacts on Wilmington, and kind of the leader of that is someone you know. That's Gina Martinez, who's our note taker, but is also president of the Wilmington Neighborhood Council. So this is a come together kind of document that I think that just in my experience, our best chance to actually get some things done on some of these issues where the port, particularly the things that the port could have done differently when they first did them, like rail horn noise and basementing utilities and things like that. Our best chance to get this left as a legacy by this board as it, you know, changes regime when a new mayor comes in. Our best chance is if the 4 neighborhood councils will work together. And this is a working document. So anybody who has some further suggestions on how it can be strengthened or improved, or other things that they see that need to be addressed, you know, talk to me. And Tom Norman, you suggested addition of some more pictures in it. I do have pictures. I couldn't get them in time for the, you know, putting this into the agenda packet, but they'll be in the next iteration of the package. Thank you. And thanks for everybody's help on this. I've really been very, very pleased with it.
There's no other comment then. Go ahead, Mr. Secretary.
Okay, John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, I, John Demiglio,
No.
Craig Goldfarb,
No.
Cynthia Gagne,
Going to abstain.
Christian Guzman,
Christian, you may be muted.
Christian.
I voted yes. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
Now I heard you. Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie LeBrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Adrian Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
Ray Regalado,
Yes.
David Semperio,
Abstain.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle.
Yes.
It's 12 ayes, 2 nays, 2 abstentions. It carries.
And I just want to thank everyone. I particularly want to thank Pat Nave because he's the one who spent all the time putting this together, taking it out to all the groups and getting all the input and putting it all down.
Here, here.
That concludes the planning committee report.
We're still not doing the.
Diana, can you release the share screen, please?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna take the executive committee. The bylaws and elections committee did briefly go over, actually, I don't think it was briefly, but they went over the code of conduct and discussed whether we want to make a statement on it. And I think a statement of opposition was proposed at the executive committee then. And the executive committee discussed it with some other council members in attendance. And they decided to vote for a opposition proposal on the code of conduct changes that the Board of Commissioners are going over. And so I think we have those for you to look at. Melanie or Vic, do you want to bring it up?
Which one do you want? What do you want?
It's 9.e.
9.e.
There's only one, 9.e.1. There's only one that's 9.e.
Let's see.
I don't see it in the tabs.
No, it's not because it's a, let's see, there it is. See it now?
Yes.
So again, this is a draft opposition of what the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners are proposing for code of conduct revisions that affect all the neighborhood councils. Does anyone want to make a comment from the executive committee since this came out of the executive committee? And then if not, we'll move on to other comments. Okay, well, Councilman Craig Goldfarb, I know you were in attendance at the executive committee and essentially proposed this. Do you want to make any comments for it?
Oh, I proposed it and support it. I think it says what came out of our committee and what came out of the bylaws committee. And we wanted to get more input, so we put it over to the executive committee. And so that's all I have to say unless anybody has any questions.
Madam Treasurer.
Yeah, again, I want to say good job to Craig. He brought this before the executive board. He wrote this all up and I have to say it's very good. He included everything that everybody brought up in this and it's perfect the way that everybody feels about this whole code of conduct thing. So good job, Craig.
Thank you. I must say that Diana helped a lot with writing the first part of it, and then I added on to it. So I have to thank her also.
Yeah.
I think you want to recognize Cynthia.
Cynthia, go ahead.
I think before we vote on this, we should have Raquel Bertrand from Bonk come and explain her reasonings for the code of conduct rather than us just saying whatever she says, which we're interpreting our way, we don't like. I would make a motion that she comes and talks before our board and gives us a presentation on this since it's so important.
Okay. Is there a second on that? Okay, then if there's no second, I saw Laurie Jacobs. Laurie Jacobs, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, Raquel Beltran's made very clear her position on this. And if anybody's interested, she has spoke several times at the Board of Neighborhood Commission meetings. In the past, she's come to Hank meetings, giving her the authority that she wants is like the fox guarding the hen house. I don't really see, and it wasn't seconded, so I guess it's a moot point. I do not think we need to hear from Raquel Beltran. Thank you.
Okay, then. I think I saw, okay, Cynthia, before you, I think I saw Diana's hand go up, but it went down. Diana, do you want to make a comment or do you reserve your comment?
No, I don't think I need to now.
Okay. Ray Regalado, since you're commissioner, do you want to give us any insight on this? What's the timeline for this? Do you know?
They've reinstituted the ad hoc committee that's going to look at this a little bit deeper. There has been a lot of just from the contributions from various neighborhood councils or individuals from the various neighborhood councils. And as I'm listening to them, I'm hearing a lot of comments that state that they are not necessarily in favor of this, but I've also heard some good stories that would justify something like this. I'm just giving you an overview, and this is just something that is coming from my impressions. I will tell you that I will not be voting on this today. I'm going to abstain because I will eventually have to vote on this from on a level from the commission. So I'm listening to everything that you're all saying because this helps me in my clarity as far as what neighborhood councils are thinking. And I have a lot of confidence in the neighborhood council, our neighborhood council, because I think many of the people here are thoughtful and they're informed, and it shows in the way that they reflect themselves on many of the issues that come before us. And this is no different. So I truly appreciate what's going on, but they will be looking at this a little bit longer. So that's what I have. And just for your information, we will be having a bonk meeting next week. So anyone and everyone's invited to listen in and or give public comment on this particular item.
Okay, well, thank you, Ray. So I believe that Craig and Melanie spoke once already. Go ahead, Gwen Henry.
Ray, of course, this would be coming from us as a body, but is Bonk and are the organizations still taking feedback from individual board members or other stakeholders as well? Possible suggestions and how to proceed?
As long we have not voted we haven't voted on the document itself. So yes, there will be some more. There's going to be more opportunity for individuals to to say something about it on whichever side of the issue that they happen to be on. But yes, there will be, and I suggest that you continue to ask for something that you feel is important at this particular point.
It's an emotional document. It's brought up a lot of emotions for a lot of people.
Well, I'll tell you, I've heard some horror stories. It's horror stories that are local and horror stories that are out, in other neighborhood councils across the city that I like I said, would justify a type of document. But I also hear that there are bits and pieces of this document that need to be expanded, need to be further explained. People are expressing their fears. And so like I said, it's going to be very controversial. It's going to be something that it's going to be a tough document to vote on, to be honest with you.
Great. Mr. Vice President.
Thanks. Yeah, and one of the things that I considered was sort of all the anecdotal situations that you might find, like within our council or within San Pedro or even wider throughout the rest of the city, where you have instances of bad behavior and excess and abuse that absolutely need something done. But the idea of really kind of not that it's not too topical, but then when you have some degree of chaos or discord or disruption that gets your attention personally, to have an appeal to essentially a strong central figure, to have a strong man sort of who's able to come in and fix all the problems and deal decisively without all the sort of red tape and the compromise that comes with more deliberation. Usually people will, I feel that people will revert to that type of administration when they are frustrated with the current order of business. However, it often turns like whatever can act very decisively to solve your problem can act just as decisively to create one when you're not worried about it. That strong individual administrative power, as soon as it feels like it, will be on your back, and then you will have given up the opportunity you had for compromise and for more deliberation when you need it. And so being frustrated and being irritated with what might be happening in front of you should be tempered with the caution of, how easy is it going to be to get that genie back in the bottle once you kick it upstairs to admin and just hope that you like their solution of your problem, because they will probably be acting in their best interest. They'll be acting to make their own jobs more convenient, not to make your function more robust or to make your council healthier. It's more about putting out fires than encouraging the health of the neighborhood councils. And I think we need to be really thoughtful about the unintended consequences of kicking it upstairs. Thanks.
Okay, so it's 8:38, and I believe everyone who has their hands up right now already spoke. So if there's no objection, if we have other items to go to, I'd like the secretary to take the vote now.
Okay. John Barbera,
Yes.
Vic Christensen, aye. John DeMiglio,
Abstain.
Craig Goldfarb,
Yes.
Cynthia Gagne,
No.
Christian Guzman. Couldn't hear you, Christian.
Yes.
Gwen Henry,
Yes.
Melanie Lebrecq,
Yes.
Kelly Miller,
Yes.
Alec Norman,
Yes.
Thomas Norman,
Yes.
Adrianita Reyes Cruz,
Yes.
Ray Regalado.
Abstain.
Now, given what you said, is that really more of a recusal versus an abstention?
I'm just totally abstaining from
Okay.
the item. Yeah, at this point. Yeah.
Okay. David Samperio,
Yes.
Angela Sumner,
Yes.
Chris Valle.
Yes.
Okay, 13 ayes, 1 nay, 2 abstentions. So that carries.
Point of clarification from Ray, is there a council file on this where this could be uploaded to?
No.
There isn't.
No.
Okay, Hey, I see a hand up. For what purpose is the hand raised?
I just wanted to find out that final sentence there, who, we will be on them in order to get a copy of that revised code of conduct, or the city council, I'm sorry, the city council's version of the code of conduct. Has anyone been able to obtain that yet, and who will be working on that? Because I'm very eager to see the city council's version.
Greg, did you want to answer that in some way?
Yeah, I researched it. They don't have a code of conduct. And if you look at how the laws and everything are, and they really don't, they don't have it. I think the ploy here is to get us to sign these codes of conduct so they can enforce it, because I don't think the charter amendment that gives everybody the the right to do this is really, from the way I looked at it, I don't even think it was legal. I think if they get us to sign a code of conduct like this, that it would be legal.
Okay, well, thanks for doing the extra work for us, Greg, and there is time to provide additional comment if we wanted to, or for the public to comment as well. So we'll go ahead and move on now then to the executive committee report, and we're moving on to the other committee reports. So the executive committee is comprised of me, Mr. Vice President Chris Valle, Vic Christensen, the secretary, and Melanie Lebrecht, the treasurer, and we meet and we discuss the agenda and what might go on it. Occasionally, we also take up items that kind of didn't get completed at a committee or missed a committee and is kind of time sensitive. So that's all I have for the report of it. And then we'll move on to Budget and Finance Committee report. Melanie Lebrecht.
Yeah, basically, NPGs, so far we've gotten 3 applications, 2 of which I'm not sure they fit criteria, but we'll take a look at it. One of them, like for instance, they're using somebody else's 501c3, which you can't do. You can't use someone else's 501c3 to apply for something for yourself. It has to be your own, or the person with the 501c3 has to apply. That's one of the problems with one of the applications. The other one is a serial application that's gone to 99 neighborhood councils, so we'll have to look at that. The other thing that we covered is I spent a 2-hour conversation with the city clerk and Octaviano regarding the request for the air monitors from the port committee. We received a resolution from them, but due to the fact that to the criteria, there's no detailed budget. A literal budget has to be written out on a piece of paper that notes every detailed thing that you're going to need in that budget. And then that's submitted to the Budget and Finance Committee, and we'll take it up the April 6th meeting if you want to. It was tabled and sent back to your committee. And other than that, that's it for Budget and Finance. Public Safety, what is it, C1? 10C1. Okay. So there's really nothing for Public Safety. You had all the CISs. We're trying to plan a town hall that's going to hopefully be in May. I'm waiting for back to hear from Coastal and Central, because I sent an email to both their presidents asking them if they would like to be part of our town hall. We're going to do a town hall on rec and parks to do with safety at the parks, maintenance at the parks, as well as permitting at the parks. Try and get everything under control before summer hits and things go willy-nilly. Also, we're going to include the skate park in this, so we know where they stand as far as coverage for there and protection, you know, and coverage for enforcement and all of that there to keep that from becoming a problem too. So we're looking at the end of May for this. Hopefully, if Coastal gets back, otherwise we'll do it on our own. Then CPAB report. So as you know, 3 of the officers from Harbor Division were in a traffic accident coming home from Super Bowl riot patrol down in downtown LA. And they were hit by 3 drunk drivers who fled. And it just so happened that Officer Nua and another officer were trailing behind them. And they were able to stop and jump out of their cars and get the 3 drunk drivers that took off running and left their car, and they got them. But the officer sustained a lot of severe injuries. They broken ribs, broken bones, internal injuries to Officer Ike, who was our SLO. He was in intensive care. And so these officers are going to be out for several months. It's going to be a long recovery for them, especially Officer Ike. So meantime, the officers that are covering for us are, and I got down here, Officer Ike, Officer Lopez, and here's his email, and Officer Nua, and here's his email. We'll be covering Northwest area. Anyone that has a Ring camera, the captain is asking that there's an option to opt in on that, to where you'll get emails as crimes are occurring in our area. And the captain encourages everybody to opt into that. There's a lot of concern about speeding, and a lot of people, there were 4 fatal traffic accidents this last week when they had CPAB. One by the port the night before we had CPAB on the 17th. So things are getting pretty bad. There's a lot of semi trucks in Wilmington parking in residential areas, using residential areas as a thoroughfare to get from point A to point B, knocking down signs, knocking down trees, causing accidents with cars, tipping over, all kinds of problems. We've actually had problems here on Capitol too, with them parking in the median and waiting for the trekking place to open up next to Johnny's Auto. Or they park in front of the park and they idle all day while the kids are playing at the park, which is against city ordinances for them to do that. So they're going to start putting some signs up to keep them from being able to be in this area as well as the Wilmington area. The street racing. Also, remember to keep using the online system to report a crime. If you need to report, if that type of report is needed where it's not on the list to report, then you call the 1-877-275-5273, which is a non-emergency number, or 911 if it's an emergency. Northwest San Pedro area is up 150% in robberies in the Gaffey corridor. Burglary is up 50%. Car theft is down 15%. Theft itself is up 45%. There was the food cart vendors, the task force met on the 24th, and this was in partnership with the health inspectors and LAPD. SLO Shortle and SLO Lopez conducted that. They found only one person in our area that we reported doing the food cart, and they cited them and took all their food, their fruit and all that in their cart and destroyed it because they had no permits whatsoever. So I see hands. Ray.
Yeah, I have a question. And this is something maybe for consideration. You know, as we approach the 4th of July, as we approach New Year's and other, you know, huge city celebrations like the Super Bowl, you get people, I mean, just going crazy with fireworks. But yet all over the city, they have these signs, and especially in front of LAPD, in front of the fire department. Fireworks are illegal in LA. Now, I understand just how difficult it may be to find these individuals, but it certainly seems that that if they start early, they can find some of these guys and some of these people who are stocking up, because people are popping them days ahead of time. And I'm wondering if there is something, some way, somehow that, you know, in with LAPD in partnership with the fire department, in partnership with others, that they might be able to really do some enforcement, because I do truly believe that there doesn't seem to be any consequences for all the fireworks, those big, huge firework displays that are occurring. And it doesn't seem that there's, like I said, any consequences for those things. So people just do it because it's fun, I guess. I don't know. It'd be nice if there was maybe some real thought and maybe partnership that might start early instead of trying to figure it out as the day gets closer. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, on that, Ray, hard to track down where it's coming from, but I have a feeling I know where it's coming from. They're storing it right here in back of me in my store, in the storage area, because that's where all the fireworks are going off. So they must have something to do with the storing it of an area to store it here in the facility. You know, that can be checked out. It'd be appreciated, because they're nonstop right here on Westmont and Gaffey. And
Yeah.
it's going to be coming from the storage area. So I think they're storing it there, and they distribute it all out the whole city or whatever.
Yeah, I believe that there's a lot of money involved with this, and
Can
no
we
consequence.
refer this to committee instead of discussing it?
Well, thank you, Craig. That's really a great suggestion.
Yep, I've got it written down here.
I didn't want to, I didn't have my hand up for that. I just responding to Ray, but responding to Melanie, I think we need to find out about the Parks and Recs, how the Harbor Department is doing it, because they maintain their toilets. They maintain them on 22nd Street, part of the Harbor Department. I think they maintain it down by the cruise ship terminal and that parking lot and area there. There's toilets there too. So I came in contact with those people and I asked him, what do you do? And he goes, no, we're the maintenance people for the toilets. And so they have a program and it works. And they're cleaner than any other toilets around. So I think we need to figure out what they're doing right and what we're doing wrong.
John, just to let you know, those lock by a key, those bathrooms, and they bolt. Ours are these darn mechanical locks, timers, and they keep demagnetizing them and then they break them. That's the problem.
Yeah, I use those bathrooms on 22nd Street because I teach down there, and it really doesn't matter. They maintain them, they clean them.
Yeah.
The homeless people use them, but they clean them.
Yep.
So there's a service there. The problem is cleaning, the cleaning of them, and they even have stock there are the toilet seat covers stocked. I don't even know if we have a holder in these toilets here for one of those or not. But it has to be looked at because they're doing something right. They're allotting the money to have a maintenance person to go around all these toilets. I don't know how often they do it, but it seems like pretty often. It needs to be looked at.
Okay, I'm just gonna chime in and say, before we go any further on a specific topic, maybe we'll wanna move on, because then it could essentially be like an agenda item that we're discussing. So, did you have anything else to report on the?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. In regards to port, the port committee has recently done a lot of collaboration with the other committees, planning and sustainability. And as we acted on the item earlier, which was the mitigation policy, that kind of the genesis was in the port committee. So I think that's very good. And then we're also continuing to discuss the port air quality monitors, and we're kind of running into some challenges with regards to that, just because we're learning and growing. And so we have time to figure it out, and I think we will. And it will meet again as necessary. And that's all that concludes the report. Next report, go ahead.
I had my hand raised.
Okay, what's your question?
We're supposed to have a port committee meeting and there was no agenda. Did something happen?
No, there was not really much interest in meeting this month, so we're gonna not meet this month. And if there's an interest in meeting next month, we'll meet next month.
I was interested in meeting.
Okay, very good. Express your interest then in the future, and then we will have the meeting. Let's
I
move on
wasn't
now.
asked. Sorry. I wasn't asked. I don't get this.
Youth and Outreach Committee report, go ahead.
Thanks real briefly. Things are starting to ramp up. We've made overtures and are in communication with the staff at Bogdanovich, that is Lori Jacobs has been, for our first more or less live in-person event of 2022. For a movie in the park, yet to be determined, but the next step is to file paperwork and get the permits and everything before we to follow the procedure that Melanie outlined before we try and allocate funding. But I will be getting the handoff from Lori to go make those next arrangements. Social media continues to grow. We've had a few events recently that have been more promotable, and we've been able to do a little bit more engagement and generate a little bit more interest in our social media accounts. If you do not follow at NW San Pedro on Instagram, please do so, and like and subscribe, as the kids say. And it was touched in community issues, but John Barbera did mention to me that he's been in contact with Andy Harris about the state of the skate park, and that they are moving ever closer, and in fact, at a greater pace and with more purpose, towards the completion of the skate park at Channel Street. So we're looking forward to that, and there may be potential to partner for events if and when they have a reopening. So it looks like spring and summer will be a lot more active with respect to our outreach end of it, and especially, I guess, suppose with youth, if you consider moving in the park and the skate park itself. Thank you.
Planning Committee.
Thank you. Just two things. One, with regard to the Starbucks location, the committee is going to wait until the traffic study is completed before we generate any comments on that. The other thing is that on March 23rd, Wednesday, March 23rd, at the joint committee meeting, the planning department will be presenting to all the planning groups in the harbor area on the plan to house Los Angeles, specifically on the part of that plan that goes street by street, address by address, with proposed potential upzoning of properties and an explanation of the kinds of different upzonings that they're considering. So that'll be a really important meeting. That's Wednesday, the 23rd at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Excellent. Bylaws and elections then.
No further comments on that.
Community issues.
Okay, as Chris said, we had Andy Harris do a presentation for us, give us an update on the skate park and everything, and it looks like it's going well. We're probably looking sometime just before summer. And also him and his partner, if we can, next month, and I'll talk to you about it later, Christian, that they'd like to do a presentation also on our board to let fill in everybody what's happening with more updates. The defense property on Gaffey, they're still being negotiated by the Navy with a, one potential leasee. I won't go into other things. The ball fields property of the Northwest, they're still subject to negotiations. We don't know anything. I talked to Chewy, they're still up in arms. We're endeavoring on to get an update on the status of the proposed marijuana dispensary on Gaffey. We're also endeavoring to host a representative from the city sanitation department to explain new composting rules throughout Los Angeles. And number 8 is to get information from the city planning regarding new bus rapid transit routes within the communities and connecting San Pedro Harbor area to the rest of the city. And that is it.
Excellent, thank you. We will talk. Environment and sustainability. Anything from environment and sustainability?
Christian, I got a text from Gwen. She's indicated that she got kicked off the meeting, so she's trying to get back in.
Yeah, I don't see her in attendees yet, but I got the same text as well. I guess it looks like it might be on her end.
She didn't have a meeting because her meeting, I was involved in it. Her meeting, she had given her host up to the presenter. And so she had a presentation at her meeting and then everybody got kicked out when the presenter left.
Okay, all right, well, let's move on then, and if she comes in and wants to speak on something, we can do that. Vic Christensen, you want to give an update on the Science Center?
Nothing new this time.
Okay. How about the Harbor Alliance? Madam Treasurer? Anything on the Harbor Alliance?
There was no Hank meeting because they are meeting quarterly now.
Okay, then. Mr. Vice President, do you have anything on Public Works?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay, it's 9:02. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council's March meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Bye.
Aye.
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 Aye. Lydia has her hand raised.
Yes. I just needed to know who the first and second were.
First
Craig
was,
Craig Goldfarb was first.
and Melanie was second.
Thank you so much.
This meeting is adjourned then. Thank you for attending this March meeting of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council, and we look forward to seeing you in April and in our committees this month.
Good night.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thanks. Night, everyone.
Bye.